Yes, it is a great game. I enjoy this game a lot. And at the moment, I think it's a recommendable game that people should hop onto. After a 26-year hiatus, Fatal Fury is finally back. I have been enjoying the trailers that I've been seeing, except for the last two ones that I've been seeing recently of Ganachi and Ronaldo, characters that I just don't really care for. Honestly, I was really looking forward to seeing how they would pan out this game as a whole. So I followed up from the teasers of the posters that they've put out from 2022. And to tell you the truth, I was also just interested to see what they were going to do with some of the characters, because it was basically another another sequel to the canon story of Fatal Fury. I thought, what were they going to do with the rest of the characters? How are their stories going to pan out, and how the gameplay mechanics are going to work out, so on and so forth. And I think they've done a really good job at doing that, honestly. I think that the characters that were going to be put in Fatal Fury, it was predictable, but I was quite surprised with a few people that were going to be there. I honestly think that when I saw the first trailer of it and how the game looks, I honestly predicted that, because I heard the voiceovers of some of the characters, there was going to be some that I thought, oh, this will be interesting. I'm finally going to get to see the characters from Garo Mark of the Wolves, and they are basically in there. To be honest with you, I think some of the art style in this one is very, very good. It's not trying to be realistic. It's not trying to be so a 3D fighting game, even though it's a 2D fighting game. But the animation and the special moves that they have put out on some of these games have actually been very, very good. I loved the animation on a lot of these. I think they were really great. I think some of the gameplay mechanics that were in this game were actually pretty good. It sticks to what happened in the previous Garo Mark of the Wolves. And I think that, honestly, adding newer stuff to it was actually pretty decent, which is the arcade and the smart move. Arcade is something that you use manually. It's pretty much something that you have to do if you want to get good at some of the controls and stuff like that. But I feel like if you know how the game works and you have played it before it was released on closed beta, I think that you will know how certain moves are about with characters that are in the game previously. I think that there are moments where the smart moveset is actually just an easier way of kind of knowing how to do combos. So it's kind of similar to what they did with Tekken. Basically, they added newer features such as the basic combos that they add. So whenever you press like R1, that's when you can see the combos that you can produce. But with the smart move, it's basically just swapping the fighting style and then basically knowing how to do the combos more easier. I mean, some of the characters that are on the smart mode are actually pretty good at this easy combo moves, especially Preacher, for example. She's just killing it, and I definitely love what they did to Marco Rodriguez. Even though Marco Rodriguez has a short amount of combo and it's not as long as Preacher, I still think it's there. But to be honest with you, what I was expecting was kind of a story that wasn't really as intriguing as I hoped it would be, but I was left with some surprises. There was some surprises in Billy Kane's story mode, and I did not see it coming. But personally, I thought that if you are not aware of it, then I recommend going to story, because it is pretty good. Also, I do like that there are some happy moments in there, and it's not always dark. It's a mixture between a surprise, dark, and happy moments in the story. One thing that I would say is that they add their own versions where they do cutscenes of characters to be introduced, kind of like the previous Fatal Fury games that you saw in Fatal Furies 1 to 3. Honestly, it's like when the character you are about to face have their own little introduction, you get screenshots of them, basically excited about a fight. And honestly, it's a pretty good feature, and it reminisces of some of the things that you've seen previously. And I'm glad that we get a nostalgia feeling from Fatal Fury, because little did we know that even though Fatal Fury previously were making a game called Garo Mark of the Wolves 2, 70% of the fighting game was actually complete. It's just that after the financial issues and the deadline dues, it didn't really meet properly, unfortunately. So at this point, they had to cancel it and then just move on to something else. Basically, some of the popular fighting games that you're seeing from SNK. And I think after the 26-year wait, we finally get it. We finally play it. It's now amazing. We've waited now 3 years, because when it was announced in 2022, we had to wait 3 years later for it to be fully released. And I honestly appreciate that this is now becoming a series. It's not just a whole game and we're only getting the characters that we have gotten. There are more characters now that are put into the game. We're getting Street Fighter characters like Ken and Chun-Li. What? Those characters in the game is crazy, and I don't believe that that was the case for certain parts. When I heard the news, I was so excited, but with the season 1 characters that we're about to witness, like Mr. Big, Andy, and Joe, I was so excited, but I kind of wish they weren't in DLC. I'll be honest with you. I think that that's probably the reason why I was a bit disappointed with a couple characters that were in the game that were not DLC. And I'll get into that a bit later. They have just done a really good job with it. The voice acting, if you get tired of the English, there's Japanese. And sometimes I prefer things to be traditional, so I don't like when English dubs take over the Japanese dubs when this is made in Japan. I prefer things to be more traditional on that side, to be honest with you, so that's why I'm not that interested in the English sometimes. But I will say there are some downsides to this game, and I will get into it specifically. The downside of it, in my opinion, is to do with the artwork on the ending of each character's story. I think some of it is a little hit and miss. I think the idea of having a prelogged and an epilogue of character rivalry here and there, I mean, why would we get a fully rendered character but then have an artwork that doesn't hit and miss at the ending? Why can't we get a full-on rendered of the characters from the previous screenshots of those moments? I just think that if you are going to make something like this, then make it a bit more consistent. I don't like how some of the artworks have been drawn out. Some of it could have done a little redo, but I think not all of it is terrible. I still think some of them are okay, but I also think that a couple characters like Ganachi and Ronaldo, one gets a story but the other doesn't. But why is Ganachi the only person out of the two to get the story, but Ronaldo doesn't have a story? I don't get it. I mean, to put those two characters as the main rosters and not DLC is another thing that I had a problem with. I didn't think the game was completely done and people are not going to play it or something like that, to the point where it's over, Fatal Fury is done. I think that the idea of putting Ganachi and Ronaldo in it wasn't a good idea in terms of the fans' reaction to it, because some of the people are not even going to know who Ganachi is, but they will know who Ronaldo is. For goodness sake, he's the most popular footballer out there right now. I mean, compare him with Messi and all of that. I mean, that would have been hilarious if they put Messi in there, but then again, I wouldn't find it funny. But at the same time, I think that the idea of just having those real characters in the game is very strange, and I also didn't like the choices that they made. I think that the person that should have really been there, in my opinion, is Yamazaki, Blue Mary, Duck King, or Andy Bogard, or Joe Higashi as the main, rather than just those two characters that we're kind of getting. And even though I'm refusing to play those characters, it's just my personal dislike for that specifically, and I don't really care for them. I really don't. I honestly think that these characters are just not relevant to Fatal Fury. I would prefer the Fatal Fury characters, to be honest with you. And speaking of that, I hope in the second season and the third season we might get more interesting characters in the game. I'm looking forward to it, but personally, those two characters, I'm just not interested in them. I don't care for them. So that's why my nitpicks are a bit like here and there. And another thing I will say is that I wish the arcade story mode was a bit longer rather than short, because it just doesn't really feel like there is moments where I can enjoy it longer than I could, you know? I just think it should have been a bit longer if the rounds are quicker to get through. Another thing I wanted to say about some of this is that I really enjoyed what they did with the computer AI, because the computer sometimes can be very easy when it comes to defeating the boss, even at the highest level. But this one was a lot harder. I couldn't even get through certain characters like Cotw, Preacher, or Cotw. They are basically the characters that I'm struggling to beat like a few times. Cotw is so unpredictable at times, and I hate that, but I do love a challenge. These computers are very hard to come against sometimes, and even at level 3, they were pretty hard. But at level 5, boy, you ain't surviving, bro. You ain't surviving. That's why I really enjoyed that they made the game more harder for other people so that they can have a real competition and a real stress level moment where they actually struggle to go against a computer. Because the thing is, I still think there are moments where I have to reach a higher level to basically have my own moment where I'm stressing over some characters that I can't beat, or I'm challenging myself to the point where I'm learning something new each time. But I think that was a really good way that they have put it to make sure that the game is more entertaining and high energy. So I give them props for that. But even though I will say that the idea of putting Ganache and Ronaldo to invite fans of those people to make sure that they get the game is an interesting idea. Because I know some of them might not be interested. You can't really force someone who doesn't play fighting games to play the game unless they have to, well, not even they have to, but you should let them decide for themselves if they want to get it or not. And if they want to get it, that's cool. If they don't and it's not for them, then you can't blame them. They pretty much want to go and play FIFA or FC 25 to see Ronaldo play, or listen to Ganache's music, than to play a fighting game or even play video games in general. But overall, I really enjoyed this game a lot. I think this is worth playing. In conclusion, I think this might go down as one of my favorites in 2025. I know I really just hope that this season gets better and better and it doesn't do what Tekken has done, basically put the things that they have patched on the game to take a nosedive. I hope they don't do that in Fatal Fury. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing how it works. So yeah, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. And yeah, that's that. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate you stopping by. Peace.